Good morning, everyone. For many years, Arizonans and all Americans have called on our federal government to take the issue of border security seriously. Too often, this request has been met with empty words and little action. We know that drug trafficking and human smuggling across our southern border have destroyed lives in our local communities and across the nation. To put it plainly, when it comes to matters of public safety and national security, talk without action isn't just cheap, it's dangerous and deadly. That's why I was determined to take decisive action and a stand when coming into office. I tasked the Department of Public Safety to rebuild relationships with our federal partners, direct resources to interdiction, and to work with our border sheriffs to push resources to the border. The result was the establishment of Arizona's Border Strike Force in 2015. This interagency team has demonstrated what can be accomplished when federal, state, and local departments and agencies work together for the good of all Americans. We're taking the fight directly to the drug cartels and human smugglers, and we're getting results. Since 2015, Border Strike Force operations have led to the seizure of over 60,000 pounds of marijuana, 295 firearms, 173,000 rounds of ammunition, 15.6 million hits of heroin, and enough fentanyl to kill more than 11 million Americans. That's millions of hits of dangerous drugs kept off of our street, away from our homes, and out of our classrooms. It's not just drugs and guns. Since 2015, the Border Strike Force has made 3,200 arrests. Border Strike Force detectives have also arrested suspects in multi-state sex trafficking rings, with the primary suspect receiving 20 years in prison and a life of supervised probation after that. These are exceptional results, and we want to see more of them. That's why in our latest state budget, we prioritized support for the Border Strike Force with a $2.9 million investment that will add 12 state troopers to this team. And I'm proud to announce that these new dollars will start arriving this month, bringing us that much closer to achieving our ultimate goal of having 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week coverage. There are many people to thank, and I want to express my gratitude first to Arizona's border county sheriffs. No one knows our southern border like these sheriffs, and the Border Strike Force simply could not exist without them. Please join me in giving a hand to two fine border sheriffs with us today, Cochise County Sheriff Mark Daniels and Pima County Sheriff Mark Napier. Thank you, sheriffs. And a special thanks to Colonel Frank Milstead for his bold leadership of the Border Strike Force. Thank you, Colonel. I also want to say a special thanks to Chief Koresh, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, for his leadership, partnership, and support of our efforts. Thank you, Chief. Arizona's commitment to securing our southern border is only getting stronger. The aircraft behind me are highly sophisticated. Our K-9 units are relentless, and our troopers, detectives, sheriffs, police chiefs, and law enforcement personnel are as tough as they come. With all of this, our message to drug cartels and human traffickers is loud and clear. The people of Arizona have had enough. We will find you, we will stop you, and we will bring you to justice. I want to say thank you again to our federal partners. Your willingness to work with Arizona's Department of Public Safety and our local sheriffs and police chiefs across jurisdictions and across administrations has made Arizona and America a safer place. Arizona could not have done this on our own, and we look forward to a continued partnership and success with you in the years to come. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sheriff Mark Daniels. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Governor, thank you so much for all your support. You know, in the 34 years I've worked in Cochise County, I have personally witnessed the evolution of border security. From the large groups seeking the American dream to the ruthless and dangerous transnational organizations, the cartels that have come into our county, our country, and have infected our communities and, most important, our families. We are truly on the front line of border security. One component of border security that has been lacking is the collaboration over the years between local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies to work collectively to stand united against the criminal transnational organizations and cartels. In Cochise County, we have developed a multi-agency community initiative to secure our border, working with Governor Ducey, our federal partners, and what the citizens in our county now call a success and progress. Thanks to the dedicated commitment leadership by Governor Doug Ducey, DPS Director Colonel Frank Milstead, our Cochise County deputies, officers, troopers, and federal agents, Cochise County Brian McIntyre, Border Chief Rudy Karish, and all our federal partners, and most important, our citizens that we take an oath to protect. I'm proud to announce that Cochise County has truly made the difference in border security, and what is so important to all of us, that quality of life. Over the last year, we've sent a strong message to the cartel. Smuggling in Cochise County and Arizona will not be tolerated. Since the implementation of our zero tolerance program, those that choose to smuggle illegal drugs have been apprehended within Cochise County, 100% of those individuals are now sitting in the Arizona Department of Correction, i.e. prison. As a result, Cochise County is a safer and better place for our citizens, and I'm proud to call that my home. Enhanced quality of life within our communities, higher risk consequences for smugglers entering Cochise County, a unified cooperative effort by all levels of the criminal justice system, and restored faith and trust by our citizens and visitors. In closing, a special thank you to Governor Doug Ducey, Colonel Milstead for believing in us, and yes, a secure border, and members of my Southern Arizona Border Regional Enforcement Team who are here today. And most important, before I leave you, my citizens, ranchers, farmers who have endured and lived this nightmare for over 2 decades. I personally thank you for your patience and your strength. And finally, to the Krentz family who lost their loved one, Rob, at the hands of true evil. And Karen Gonzalez, who was brutally assaulted and left for dead by a 2-time deported criminal alien. Border Patrol agents Brian Terry and Nick Ivey, who paid the ultimate sacrifice serving the country they so much loved. That is why we serve. God bless you all, and those assembled here today, and my fellow sheriffs throughout this great nation. We will never give up the fight to sustain a secure border. Thank you all. Thank you, Governor. Thank you.
Well, good morning. I'm Mark Napier. I'm the sheriff of Pima County. Sheriff Daniels and I share over 200 miles of exposure to the international border between our counties, and therefore we're keenly aware of the very significant and complex issues of transnational crime transcending our international border and affecting public safety in our county. These problems cannot be solved with simple solutions or unilaterally, and that's why what we're doing here today is so very, very important. The collaboration between all of the criminal justice stakeholders, state resources, local resources, and federal resources working together in tandem to address what is an increasingly complex, ever-changing, and dynamic public safety problem. Make no mistake, this is about transnational crime. This is about a public health emergency to our state and to our nation with the opiate crisis. Less talked about is the escalation of methamphetamine trafficking through our border, which is also showing a significant rise in overdoses and trafficking of that narcotic into our communities. This is a transnational crime issue that dramatically impacts public safety in our respective counties. The sheriffs cannot do this alone. The Department of Public Safety and our state resources cannot do this alone, and our federal partners cannot do this alone. It absolutely requires a coordinated, collaborative, and comprehensive approach to solve these problems, and we cannot leave these problems unsolved. They present every day significant public safety problems and public health problems to our respective communities. Our sheriffs stand united in this state, and we're on the front line of that. As the elected law enforcement officials in our respective counties, our communities look to us to help solve these very difficult problems. And the complexities of these problems cannot be solved by sheriffs alone. That's why we have great partners in the Department of Public Safety and Colonel Milstead. But I'd really like to acknowledge the excellent partner that we have in Chief Karish. Our partnership with the Border Patrol is just outstanding. The collaboration and the sharing of information, the sharing of resources is something really to be prized in the criminal justice community. I've been involved in this since 1981, and I don't think I've ever had the pleasure of working with such a dedicated, committed team of professionals to attack something that is an enormously complex problem. In Arizona alone, we have a 370-mile exposure to the international border, and every portion of that border has different nuances to it. We have ports of entry, which are portholes for drug and human trafficking. The other thing that we don't speak enough about is the human rights issue associated with our porous border. Sheriff Daniels and I, every year, recover more than 200 bodies in the deserts of our counties of people that have exploited the porous nature of our border and become victimized by criminal bandits or coyotes or victimized by the environment. Not only is this a public safety problem, a transnational crime problem, a national security problem, but it is also a human rights problem. And we need to address this thoughtfully, and it will not be simply done, it won't be quickly done, but it will require absolute collaboration between all the stakeholders. In our state, we're very, very fortunate. We have a governor that keenly understands the issues surrounding border security. He's an active partner with our border sheriffs, with our state, local, and federal partners, and he understands the scope and nature of the problem. And that's why he's committed so many resources to attacking this problem, because he understands it's a public safety problem that transcends the area of the international border, migrates north into all parts of our state, and really into all parts of our country. Drug trafficking that comes through my county, which we estimate may be as much as 40% of all the illegal narcotics that come into the United States come through my county at some point. So when there's an overdose on fentanyl in a street in Illinois today, it most likely came through here. We are on the front line of this battle, and make no mistake, this is a battle against transnational crime. We're very, very fortunate to have Governor Ducey as a partner who understands the nature of the transnational crime threat, is a strong supporter of border security, but also understands that Mexico is not our enemy. They're our neighbor, they're our friend, they're our trading partner. We rely heavily upon transnational, legitimate transnational commerce as an economic driver to the state of Arizona, more than $9 billion a year of legitimate transnational commerce. So we have to strike a balance between all these competing priorities. It's a very dynamic, very complex playing field, and we are working to solve that in a collaborative, comprehensive fashion, as evidenced by what we're speaking about today. Very proud to be a part of this team, very proud to be an Arizona sheriff. We have a cohesive group of 15 sheriffs in this state, which lends great credence to public safety in our state. As working a collaborative group, I speak to Sheriff Daniels probably twice a week on border security issues. These are important issues for safety in our community. Very proud to be a part of this, and with that, I'd like to introduce Chief Rodolfo Karish, Chief of the Border Patrol, Tucson Sector. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to start off by thanking Governor Ducey for his leadership on this issue as we all tackle the border security problem together. We have worked closely with the Department of Public Safety here in Arizona over the years, and we are also benefiting from his deployment of the National Guard down on the border as we speak. They're helping us with a lot of logistical and administrative support so that we can get more agents back to the line. I think you've heard from the other speakers so far about the issue, but as the Chief Patrol Agent in Tucson Sector, I have seen the consequences of an unsecured border. I have seen inhumane results of human smuggling and trafficking. I have seen the flood of narcotics and dangerous criminals that come across our border. I have also seen the violence that's perpetuated against innocent civilians and also law enforcement officers. The scope and complexity of these criminal organizations operating along the Arizona-Mexico border requires a united front at the federal, state, local, and tribal level. I know that is what you have here today. This team effort of us coming together shows that we are equally committed to securing our borders and making sure that the citizens of Arizona and this country are safe. Arizona shares an international border with Mexico of over 300 miles, and there is no one agency that has all the resources necessary to effectively control the flow of people, illegal drugs, weapons, and other contrabands that cross this border daily. We all have a stake in strengthening border security because it is ultimately about national security, and we must work together to keep Americans safe while improving the quality of life for the citizens in our communities. We cannot afford to work in silos, but must build partnerships with the community stakeholders, law enforcement agencies in the border area, and also with the governor of Mexico. So I thank the governor for hosting this event today. I'm proud to stand alongside of the men and women here who continue our efforts in providing border security to this country. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Governor Ducey, for the incredible opportunity to lead the men and women of the Arizona Department of Public Safety for the last 3.5 years. You look behind us here, and this aircraft, this rescue helicopter, came to us from the legislature in a cooperation with this department. So not only can we do air rescue, but we have the capacity to do more enforcement and more work on the southwest border. You look at the gray aircraft over here on the left, and that was a partnership with the Department of Defense, the 1033 program. We received these aircraft from the Air Force and rebuilt them and purposed them specifically for surveillance operations as drugs moved from the southwest border into Phoenix metropolitan area. Without the governor's leadership and without relationships that we've built with our federal partners, these two pieces of equipment are absolutely impossible to get because of the expense associated with them. Then I look at these men that are next to me on my left, and I'm the guy who gets to lead them, and they do the work. Two newest members of the Border Strike Force on the end with the dark face and long ears is Damon, one of our newest canines, and the other newest member, the real handsome Rico, is also a member of the Border Strike Force. We have about 32 dogs right now deployed with the Arizona Border Strike Force. Dogs are good. Their retirement and benefit program's affordable, and it makes it easy for us to keep them out on the road, and their efforts and the security they provide to handlers is amazing. This is a complex operation. It's a complex problem. The acumen, the business acumen of the drug cartels is incredible. They've been smuggling drugs into this state for 100 years, and they're very good at it. And as we adapt, they adapt. And as we grow different drugs in America and different demands, they answer those demands by moving different types of drugs, whether it's now fentanyl and heroin or a surge in methamphetamine. You look at the drugs and the weapons that are on these tables, these are in your neighborhoods, these are in your schools. If we're not out there providing that interdiction piece. And it's really just this simple for me. The leadership from the counties, the leadership from the Border Patrol, the leadership from the federal government, that we all get to collaborate and work together, is really just to keep white powder out of the hands of school kids. Because as we all know, as we grew up, we were risk takers. We did things that probably weren't always great decisions. And with methamphetamine, with heroin, with fentanyl, it only takes one juvenile to make one poor decision that affects a family, a life, and it changes things forever. I find great pride and take great pride in trying to keep these drugs out of the hands of kids and changing lives. You hear a lot of tough talk about drugs are a self-correcting problem and this and that, and I would tell you that's nonsense. These are kids that make decisions that impact their lives and impact the lives of families. And I've had friends that have lost kids to overdoses, and I have friends that don't sleep at night because their kids are addicted and they're afraid they're going to wake up and find them with a needle in their vein, or they've insufflated a white powder and they're dead in their bedroom. That's where it hits home, and that's what all these people and all this equipment is designed to do. It's to try to keep drugs out of America. Thank you, and I open it up to questions.
This is an open event. Anyone who wants to come can come. People are following my election, and we're going to follow my election. I'm not going to stay home because it's an election year. We have real issues at the border. This is an event around the Border Strike Force and highlighting the success that we've had in relationship with our federal government and local law enforcement. Are there any other questions? Yes. It's a public event. So this would be a coordination between the Border Strike Force and between the Customs and Border Protection. So I'm going to let the leaders of that address this. Rudy?
Of course, anyone that is encountered coming through a port of entry, they're processed, they're turned over so that they can have an interview with U.S. Customs and Citizenship, USCIS. They're the ones who actually process, determine whether the individual is actually going to go before an immigration judge for an asylum hearing. So there is a process in place for any referral, whether that's made from the Border Patrol or whether that's made from a state agency who encounters an individual who's actually claiming asylum is to be referred to the proper office.
And I'll just hit real briefly on that. When members of my department encounter people that need to find refuge other places, we work collaboratively with our Border Patrol partners, and those are taken care of on the front line.
Are there any other questions? This is a public event. Are there any other questions regarding the event? Thank you.